wait, I can play the music in here. So that way I don't have to do any editing at all. Let's do that. All right.
Except for this part.
Welcome in to yet another edition of the Return of the Roar podcast. Frankie Cartoscelli, Chris Watkins, as always, joining us this week. You guys can now talk. You guys were trying to hold in the laugh as I was doing.
Come on, Matt, talking over the song. What's the matter with you?
You had a bad day.
Matt George, ABC 10, Brenden Nunes of the King's Herald, also of the King's Pulse podcast. Matt George, also of Locked On podcast. Definitely need to make sure to get that one in there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you guys on the pod. Coming at such a beautiful time. The Kings are on a 5-game win streak, currently sitting 7 games above 500, number 3 seed in the Western Conference. Number 1 seed right now in the Pacific Division, which I guess people are still paying attention to.
Hell yeah, baby.
The question on everyone's mind is, will we hang a banner, gentlemen? No, that we don't.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Should
absolutely.
we? Okay,
There's so much ceiling space up there. Damn right.
There's
Get
two
another
banners, two individual banners right now that are hanging up for our division titles. Should we consolidate them to just make one?
Nope.
Like with the list, like they're listed. Yeah. Yes.
No.
Yes. We don't need separate banners for come on.
I want
Here's
more.
The best question. Do we even need division banners?
No.
Like, is
this
there
year
any
they do.
other team in the NBA that hangs division banners?
No.
Is there any other team in the NBA with a 16-year playoff drought?
No, I don't think there's any other team with a 4-year playoff drought. I don't think there's any other team with a 4. We have like the 4 times the longest playoff drought. I think it's the Hornets right now. That's Yeah, maybe. I mean, they should maybe think about hanging a banner for the playoff drought, because I think that should be like
a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah, like a roll of toilet paper. It's like a tattoo on the franchise, if you will, like to never forget the fact that we went 17 years without sniffing the playoffs.
They should retire the number 16.
They should
playoff drought on it.
Peja and playoff drought.
Drought.
Oh, that's right, Peja. Oh, sorry, bud.
I think it's already retired, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
sorry,
but
Peja. You
just
lose
put
it.
a second one up there, because like I think the Yankees have 2 number 8s retired for Yogi Berra. They have 2 number 8s retired, so they can retire 2. You can do 2.
Oh, classic Yankees doing something dumb.
Oh, we have so many good players that we actually have to double retire them.
You know what? I do realize with baseball, they do. Even the Yankees have like division championship like flags in the out. Like they don't. I don't get why. I don't get why it's a thing. I don't really get it.
Hey, let's take the whole thing that's special with retiring a number for a specific player, and let's do them for 2. Yuck, we're the Yankees.
They didn't retire. Come on, you're gonna disrespect Yogi Berra?
Yes.
Is that what we're doing? Are we disrespecting Yogi Berra on this nice Thursday morning?
Yogi Berra's got some incredible quotes. I'll
remember that.
That's really all I know.
When you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Take it. Always. And my favorite is nobody ever goes there. It's always crowded.
It's always crowded. Or it gets late early out here.
I stand Pacific Division banners.
So anyways, Pacific Division banner soon to be coming. Can't wait to get that one stitched up and up in the rafters. Can't wait. While we're talking about accolades and acknowledgments, we should also acknowledge the fact that All-Star returns have yet again came out for the fan voting just about an hour ago before we started recording. And gentlemen, we finally, the city is done. We have done it. We are top 10. We have gotten Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox both in the top 10 of All-Star fan voting. Many would say it doesn't matter because this is only half of the vote and this is only for All-Star starters. But yet it still feels like an accomplishment after both not making the initial list for them to finally crack that top 10. Is there any thoughts on the Kings now being in the top 10 of All-Star fan voting? Frank?
I'm just glad the Kings. My bad. I don't mean to step on toes.
No,
wow.
That was my bad. That was a late toss.
No, go ahead.
Like Frank. A referee late whistle.
Brenden, you have thoughts.
I want to hear from Frankie personally.
Oh,
so do I.
Okay. First of all, I mean, I guess it's nice they're ending on that note. They're both in the top 10. That's great. That's fantastic. Now we get to know that Domantas Sabonis and Kevon Looney are like, 5,000 votes apart? That's great.
Same.
Then De'Aaron Fox and Austin Reeves are 10,000 votes apart. Fantastic. Thank you for that piece of knowledge. Other than that, I don't really care because, again, as we know, the main voting, which is happening right now, which I don't know if you guys heard, JJ Redick, who apparently has a vote, by the way. It's his first year as a media member and they're giving him a vote. Great. But he is voting for Domantas Sabonis as a starter. He's including him in his starting votes. So the media, the coaches are voting. Nice that they're getting the attention top 10, but that's my thought. Just let's see what the coaches have to say in the media.
Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons also said that they will put Domas in their start.
Really? So he might be starting. He might start the All-Star game.
Well,
he definitely might.
Fan votes, right? Just for starters.
I think it's split. Isn't
no,
it?
fan is 50%,
and then 25 is media, 25 is current players.
Because that's what JJ said, which I was confused by that too. I thought that the fan voting was all starters, but he said like I have a right to vote for the starters too. And he's like, I'm actually putting Sabonis in my starters, and I was confused. So maybe there's if I didn't know about Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe, but there's 3 guys right there that could be voting for Sabonis for All-Star starter.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Sabonis has been that guy. I think if like the season stopped right now, he'd be 3rd-team All-NBA. He's the 3rd best center in the league. Like I think Bam Adebayo's the closest guy, but after Jokic and Embiid, it's clearly Domas. And like yesterday's game against the Lakers, I think was a good example of how much this team just revolves around him. It didn't look anything like the same offense. They were able to get by, and I was glad to see some Richaun Holmes. But Sabonis has been ridiculously good for the team this year. I mean, when we're talking just under 19 points, leading the league with 12.6 rebounds, 7 assists on 61% from the field, like this guy's been absolutely ridiculous. And I think that he's an absolute lock to make it. I think that De'Aaron is more of a conversation. Like if it comes down to it, I was listening to that Zach Lowe, Bill Simmons thing that Chris pointed out. And, their conversation came down to like, oh, well, if you have to pick De'Aaron or Dame Lillard, it's pretty hard to not pick Dame, to be honest. But like, it's just going to be tough decisions when it comes to does De'Aaron make it or not. But he's right in that conversation. I think the main argument he has been all his clutch performances and his clutch statistics. He's been so good in that aspect. And obviously his numbers in general look good, but Domas should be there. And hopefully they get a second representation. Hopefully there's more than even that when it comes to the entire All-Star weekend with Kevin Huerter, ideally in the 3-point contest.
First off, F that. It's easy to not pick Damian Lillard. His team is 11th in the West at 21-23. The Sacramento Kings, I don't care what Damian Lillard is doing. You have to take into account the fact that the Sacramento Kings are in a position that nobody, including many of us in Sacramento, ever thought that they would be in at this point in January. They're 3rd in the Western Conference. De'Aaron Fox is a massive part of that. And last night, without Domantas Sabonis on the road against LeBron James, De'Aaron Fox carried the Sacramento Kings through the biggest struggle of this season. He's the most clutch player in the NBA. He's 5th in the NBA in like 4th quarter points. I know LeBron James is number 1. It didn't take a monumental 4th quarter from Fox last night for the Kings to be victorious. It's because he got all of his work done ahead of time when the Kings needed him to, and their offense was nothing besides him because they were struggling to adapt to being without Domantas Sabonis. Like all that has to be taken into account. I know Dame Lillard is Dame, and I know he has these tremendous numbers, but the Portland Trail Blazers are a struggling franchise right now. It's not all his fault, but at the same time, too, you have to give the significant credit that De'Aaron Fox deserves for the position that the Sacramento Kings in. A turnaround from not being in the playoffs to 3rd seed in the West is ridiculous. And to recognize that with just one player who you cannot ignore in Domantas Sabonis, to me, would be malpractice. So De'Aaron Fox absolutely deserves to be in the All-Star game over Dame Lillard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I think the tough part, and everything you said is 100% factual, and I'm right there with you. I think the tough part is the second part of All-Star, is the star part of it. And De'Aaron, I think, is growing his star power at the moment, but it's just going to be tough for a lot of people filling out their ballots. I believe that once you already get your one Sacramento Kings representative in there, it's just going to take a little bit more persuading for them to get that second king in there over, somebody who is a legitimate bona fide star like Damian Lillard.
Like spreading the wealth, right? Like making sure each team gets representative. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like part of me is thinking like what Sabonis is doing is so crazy because if you were to block out the name, it's like how people do the player A, player B things on Twitter. If you were just to show me those stats and be like, guess which player this is, I would say it's Jokic. Looking at Sabonis' stats, those look like that looks like a Nikola Jokic stat line. Maybe more points because I think he's around 24, 25 a game, maybe more. But I think it's almost like an outlier because what he's doing is so. I mean, I think he's top 5 on Basketball Reference's MVP like algorithm. Like he is number 5 on the MVP, their ladder. He just is playing like an absolute all-star MVP candidate, all NBA player, whatever you want to say. And does that take away from Fox being an all-star? I hope not, because Fox is also somebody. No, I don't think that it does. But for voters, like Chris said, if you chalk up a Sacramento player on your ballot, maybe you do say, okay, well, we got Sacramento their love. They deserve it. Maybe in their minds, they're not from here. That's them deserving. Like they get one. Like that's what they get.
Well, then voters are not good at their jobs. Like that's the reality, is then they're not good at their jobs, which is a very honest point, because a lot of people I know are still not watching Kings basketball, even with how good this team is. But to say that the Kings get one just because of their turnaround and not paying attention to what De'Aaron Fox specifically is doing. Plus, like, the Kings have been in the position that the Portland Trailblazers are in right now. They've been in a better position around the All-Star break and still didn't get representation. Why? Because the argument against De'Aaron Fox was that, well, like the Kings haven't won enough yet. The only Fox had the numbers, but he didn't have the wins. Now Fox has the wins and decent numbers, and we're saying you can only have one, or voters are saying you can only have one. To me, like, that would piss me off if I'm De'Aaron, and maybe fuel his fire a little bit. So I think there's a very good chance, like you're saying, De'Aaron won't make it just because it's the West. I think a lot of people are going to pick Dame over De'Aaron just because of name. And if they do and De'Aaron misses out, I mean, I think that's more fuel to his fire, and I think that would be a tragedy for the NBA in a lot of ways, because De'Aaron absolutely deserves to be there next to his front court partner.
I think it depends which voters really have a love and appreciation for the art of skating and which ones do not.
This guy personally
is crazy. Oh, boy.
Katie Christensen and Kyle Draper have used skates with De'Aaron Fox play. And I'm pretty sure it's unintentional. I hope. Oh, no. I did not come on here to be bullied.
Dang, bro, this is tough. I'm so sorry, Matt. I didn't know this was happening.
I'm here standing up for the guy that hates me on social media. No, you were like, well, maybe they'll pick Dame. The guy that he hates. Don't worry. If I were to tweet out right now, put Dame over De'Aaron Fox, he'd freaking respond to it, because he only cares about the negative stuff that I say. You guys are jerks. Leave me alone.
Matt, you're a big guy taking the high road.
This is why I do a solo pod. I can be by myself. I can be alone. Jerks.
Brendan's got to get you back, though. You came at Brendan earlier. Now Brendan came back. The boys are beefing on the pod today. It's okay. The guys are beefing.
I just told
Chris, you want to beef?
Talks.
What do you want to beef?
No,
about,
I'm
Chris?
so good. I've had a great day, and
it's been a great day.
It's a great day. We can talk about why it's a great day later.
But Giants.
Yeah.
Let's try and get Brendan just throwing swords. Let's move on. Let's move on.
I'm going to try and keep this thing on the rails. So yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about last night's game against the Lakers. This season, Domantas Sabonis didn't play last night. So far this season, De'Aaron Fox and Domas have both been incredibly healthy. I think that's been a huge key to the Kings' success so far this season. They've only missed a combined 5 games between the two of them. De'Aaron's missed 3 and Domas has missed 2, if I'm not mistaken. I think I looked that up.
Yeah.
And they haven't had to play a lot this season without their best players. And Brenden mentioned it earlier, but last night the team they weren't running the same offense that they run with Domas, and that's naturally going to happen when you have Richaun Holmes play the kind of minutes that he played in Domantas Sabonis' role. But Richaun Holmes is exactly who I want to talk about right now, because Richaun had a fantastic night last night, all things considered. He got 30 minutes, which was, I believe, the most that he's gotten all season. Gets his first start of the season. Finishes 7 of 7 from the field, 16 points, 11 rebounds for Richaun. I think he had a combined 8 minutes in the 3 games leading into that. Honestly, it's been a season from hell for Richaun all year. He just has not been able to find any rhythm. He's looked really, really bad offensively and defensively, just out of sorts. Just looking like nothing's really clicking for him. For him to have the game that he had last night, I didn't see it coming. Frank, were you more surprised by the fact that Richaun got the start last night, which I think also had to do with Alex Len not being in as well, but or his performance, which also came out of the blue?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all know that Richaun Holmes is capable of games like that. We've seen him do it. That was a normal day for him a year or so ago before the injuries took place and the off the court stuff happened. That's a normal day for Richaun. I mean, we've seen him countless times. I think he had a game where he went 12 of 12 or 11 of 11, something like that last year. Him going 7 for 7. I mean, that's him at his best, and him rebounding the basketball. The Kings really needed that presence inside. And I think that Mike Brown probably went with Richaun for that very reason. The fact that Richaun is somebody who can go get you some boards. And Chimezi's been rebounding better over the past, since he was re-implemented back in the rotation, he's been rebounding better for sure. But the Kings needed a prime Richaun Holmes performance last night. And it was the best case scenario. I don't think you could have lined it up any better. But the fact that the Kings have Richaun waiting in the wings as somebody who right now might be out of the rotation, somebody who doesn't really have a role, it just speaks to how deep this team is. And how Richaun, when he's back in he's a starter. When he's back in that normal territory of being a starting player, playing 30 minutes, getting his opportunity out there, he stay out of foul trouble. The team's dangerous. And I don't know if this is going to leak into anything else. Maybe it's just a one-off. Maybe it's Richaun coming out, giving it his all, getting the chain, leading this team to, really a win. He had a huge hand in this team winning this game last night. And then maybe he's going to go back to the bench and not play again tomorrow. I'm not sure, but it only can help his stock. I know the Kings obviously they're probably looking to at least make minor moves this deadline. I think moving Richaun could be a move they make, but games like last night help the team and help him in the long run by raising his stock.
Yeah, Brenden, do you feel like this might be a stretch? And it was only one game; it was a great game at that. But do you feel like there's a possibility that last night's performance from Richaun not completely reset his value at what it was beforehand, but do you think it kind of might have proven to some teams hey, this is not damaged goods, much like the conversation we would have about Harrison Barnes earlier in this season? It's not like this guy just all of a sudden forgot how to play basketball. It really is there's reason behind it. Do you feel like Richaun proved that last night, or does he still have some work to do in terms of rehabbing his value?
It's definitely still lower than I think what it would have been at last offseason or the offseason prior. But that was probably my biggest takeaway from last night. Obviously, if Richaun can keep up this level of play, then maybe you have your backup center situation somewhat figured out, which is a big question mark for this team. But to me, more so, Richaun Holmes is a guy that I would expect to be moved on from at some point. I don't know if that means this coming trade deadline, this offseason. I think that's more about if other teams are interested, right? I'd imagine that Sacramento's more than willing to do that, but with his contract situation, kind of like you're alluding to, it's a little tough when he's not playing. But this is the first game that he played he's only played more than 20 minutes 2 other times this year. And he broke 30 last night. His next highest minute total was 23. And he looked rough in most of those games. So first time we've seen double-digit rebounds from him. I love that they gave him the defensive player of the game chain. They definitely, every once in a while, I feel like when Mezzi got it too, they're giving it to guys that maybe there was somebody that had a better performance, but we really want to reward this guy that typically doesn't get that much opportunity or maybe typically struggles on that end, but had a good night. So we want to make sure to reward that. And I love that that's the way that they seem to go about it at times with that. I think that Richaun was really solid last night. And for sure, my biggest takeaway was this helps show teams that he still is here. He still is the same player that we thought he was. Maybe we ended up, at least for myself, maybe I ended up overvaluing him from the things we saw in years prior when I thought he was really good. I thought he was one of the 15 best centers in the league, which sounds crazy, but there's a huge drop off after 7, 8. So I thought that was the case. And I think it's just good proof that guy still exists. If you go pick and roll, if you switch on defense, I thought that first half was actually pretty tough for him. He got pulled pretty quick. And then it seemed like they started to switch a little bit more in that second half. And that's what I thought he was better at throughout the previous years. And I think that he excelled there. So I think it was a great example of if you still play to his strengths, that this guy still totally exists.
Yeah. Matt, same question. Where do you feel Richaun's value is at? And also kind of to build upon what Brenden said earlier there, do you feel like that is something that, do you feel like this performance is something that he can carry on to his bench performance as well? Or is it or what do you think his performance, a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was able to kind of stretch his legs out a little bit, get comfortable, and play 30 minutes?
I think the harsh reality of Richaun Holmes' situation is that there's very little that he can do this year to justify the money that he's making. And the money that you make has sometimes more of a significant impact on your overall value and perception of your value than anything you do on the floor. Like that's the situation. To me, I'm so damn proud of Richaun Holmes last night because he came in and he did his job. And in the first quarter, I recognized a couple times where De'Aaron and Kevin were both directly showing Richaun where to go and trying to put him in the spots that Domas normally is in, trying to get screens or dribble handoffs from the high post. That's just not Rashawn's game. Now, the Sacramento Kings lean heavily on Domantas Sabonis for the first 3 quarters, sometimes 3.5 quarters, to be the facilitator of their offense. But when De'Aaron Fox is in De'Aaron Fox fourth quarter mode, they go away from that. And Sabonis has talked post-game about how in those situations, he goes to Fox and says, it's your show. If you want me to set a screen, let me know. If not, I'll get out of your way. Like, that speaks to how great of a teammate Domantas Sabonis is. But the Sacramento Kings last night, with the success that De'Aaron Fox was having in that first half, they went away from their Domantas Sabonis focused centric offense because De'Aaron was going, and Richaun is capable of playing more downhill with De'Aaron in that way than he is trying to fill Sabonis's role. So I think there's always going to be a concern with Richaun and really every big on this roster if you're expecting them to come in and play Domantas's role for 12 minutes a night. I think there's always going to be concern. But if you let them come in and play with the players that are out there and let the offense adapt when Sabonis is off the floor, because the reality is, and I know there are names out there like Plumlee and other names that Kings fans are interested in potentially the Kings trading for that might help, but there's not going to be a backup center in the league that can come in and do what Domantas Sabonis does. They don't exist. Like, there's only 2 players in the league that can do what Sabonis does, and Sabonis is one of them. So, and the other one's the 2-time back-to-back MVP. So, what I like is that the Sacramento Kings adjusted and Richaun played his role in that adjustment. He grabbed rebounds. Keegan Murray also stepped up and grabbed rebounds to make up for that. Kevin Huerter and De'Aaron Fox stepped up with their distribution. Harrison Barnes also stepped up with rebounds. As a team, the Kings assumed the stat line that Sabonis left behind, but Richaun specifically was effective scoring around the rim, put some pressure on the rim on the other end of the floor, even if he's not known as a shot blocker, stayed out of foul trouble, like you pointed out. Richaun did his job last night, and the Sacramento Kings didn't win just because of it, but without it, they would have been in big trouble. Richaun deserves all the praise and the DPOY chain for that. And let me just say this too. In all the pictures and in all the celebration, when Chimezie Metu or Trey Lyles would get that chain, those are guys that are taking Richaun's job that Richaun is in the background celebrating. So for Richaun to get that moment and for those teammates to celebrate him in that way, I think you're exactly right, Chris. Sometimes they do, or was it Chris or Brenden that said it? I apologize. Sometimes
I'll take the credit.
All right, Frankie, well said when you said like they give the chain sometimes to players that are kind of unsung heroes, and I thought that's what Richaun was last night.
Yeah, that was definitely Brenden who said that.
Frank,
do you have any thoughts on Richaun's value and just where he sits right now?
I just based on like everything you see about all these other players that are available on the market, I think it probably is more than teams are willing to give up. I mean, I think the money is the hard part, and the Kings might maybe back off a little bit on what they want back in return. And just, I mean, you'd hate to see it be just a basic salary dump, but I mean, we could be getting to that area. Depends on what other things the Kings have lined up in order of bringing back more money. I'm not sure how much cap space they have at the moment. Brenden, do you know how much cap space? Not to put you on the spot. Do you know?
I do not.
I think they have a little bit of wiggle room. But I do think it's not very high. I don't know if it'd be, like a fringe rotation player in a second. I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's just cap relief. It's just who can take back some money in return. But I mean, the Kings need to, and I think Sam Amick was on this morning with Dave and Jason, said that the Kings are going to be protective of their team this deadline. They're not going to do anything that's going to alter the trajectory of his team. And then how the hell could you? I mean, I'm looking at Basketball References. They have their playoff projections. And for any of you that don't know, it's apparently 10,000 simulations of the remainder of the regular season. They have the Kings finishing 4th in the West, going 46-36. That's what they're projected as right now. They have a 96% chance today of making the playoffs, not the play-in, the playoffs. So I don't know what trading Harrison Barnes would do. I don't know what trading Davion Mitchell or anyone else that we've discussed. I mean, I've previously discussed with Chris, like saying as far as value goes and guys they can move, I think those are the top 2 that come to mind that you would maybe say, okay, those are things you can maybe bring back you can net a nice return. But look at where this team is and seeing where they are in the standings. They are 7 games above 500. They have a 3.5, 4 game lead in the division.
Yeah.
It's almost February. We're getting to the point where if the Kings keep playing this well and it's going to be disappointing if they don't win the division. It'd be a collapse at that point. If they have a 4 or 5 game lead after the All-Star break in the division, that's a collapse. Like,
hang the banner.
That's a collapse. So like it's a very crazy, surreal thing to look at, but I can't imagine they're going to make too many crazy moves. But yeah, Richaun was one they probably will try to make. But if they don't, I mean, I could also see a scenario where they don't do anything. I mean, they've added someone like PJ Dozier, who hopefully could have an impact defensively. Maybe that 10-day doesn't work out and they bring in like a longer, maybe a forward. I don't know, but I can't really see them blowing it up and doing any big significant moves. Can you guys? I mean, I just think they would surprise me a little bit. I mean, Matt, do you think that they would make any big like front page news, like type of moves?
The only big move that they make involves Keegan Murray. Like, that's the reality of the situation. The only big splash move the Sacramento Kings make means Keegan Murray is gone. And I hate that idea. I actually just talked about this with Sean Woodley from Locked On Raptors on Locked On Kings.
Plug it, Matt. It was a great pod. I listened, by the way. It was a really good pod.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And to me, like, it's a heart versus head argument, because does a player like OG make you better? Absolutely. But Keegan Murray is putting up ridiculous shooting numbers as a rookie and is only going to get better. Plus, you have significant contractual control. I mean, it's the argument against trading Tyrese Halliburton from last season come back to light. I think the one thing that we can trust is that Monty McNair is not afraid to make the move that he truly believes will improve this team. So every option is open. But I think it would be a massive risk to trade a lot of players on this team because of the chemistry, camaraderie, and the things that are going right. Like, I understand defense is still a concern with this team, and that might be a major difference maker in the playoffs. But considering where they were at to this point, a big splash move doesn't happen without you taking a major piece of the heart of this team and trading it away and taking it away. And that's a lot harder to do on a team that's playing as well as they are right now than last season trading Tyrese Halliburton on a failing team.
Brenden, what are your thoughts on shaking up the snow globe?
I'm the same as Matt. Like, I think that if there's a big move, it has to involve Keegan. And after what they were willing to do with Tyrese, I don't know that anything would surprise me at this point. But that's taking a big swing, because I still don't think we're talking about a team that I know they're sitting in 3rd, but I don't think we're talking about a team that's really competing for Western Conference Finals. And I hope I'm not crazy.
Hater.
There's still another jump that needs to be made. They need an elite wing is really what it comes down to. So if you see an opportunity, then maybe you feel a need to jump on that. But I think that's only if you, like I said, recognize an opportunity. I don't think they need to feel desperate. I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if somebody like Terrence Davis, Alex Len, Richaun Holmes, like Trey Lyles, Chimezie Metu, end of rotation guys, maybe got a second or two attached to them, and they tried to go get a Mason Plumlee, Kelly Olynyk, like shore up your backup center or something like that, or another backup wing, like some small move like that wouldn't really surprise me. But that's pretty much where I'm at this point. I mean, I think the HB was the most polarizing thing coming into the year. And at this point, unless it's one of those big swings, I kind of would think that HB needs to be here. He's been too important to this team.
Don't you dare trade.
And how well he's been playing. But just to kind of sprinkle one more thing, and the upcoming stretch here to me is going to be, I mean, are they a team that could quote unquote compete for the Western Conference Finals? I don't think so either. Let me say I don't think so, but crazier things have happened. And if
what a conversation.
If they can, I'm just saying, what if they come out of the stretch? Oklahoma City, Philly, Memphis, Toronto, 2 against Minnesota. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. If they come out of that 4-2, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say the Kings are going to the Western Conference Finals. I will say though, I feel very confident that they can beat. I mean, not anybody, but they can compete with. If they beat Memphis, Memphis is the one that the Kings have really struggled with. I mean, they had the win early in the season. They were missing a lot of guys. I mean, I know that Ja Morant played hurt. They're missing Desmond Bane. I think they're missing Jaren Jackson in that game too. The game the Kings won. Memphis is a complete nightmare. So if the Kings get through Monday, and again, Memphis will be on the second night of a back-to-back. Now, does that matter? No, it hasn't mattered for the Kings at all this year. I think that they're like a 1-4, 0-3 against teams that are on the second night of a back-to-back. Teams get up against Sacramento. But it kind of will, I don't know if that's going to have an impact on what Monty McNair is thinking. Maybe the Kings do come out of this next stretch playing so well. He thinks that they're that close. So maybe he does make a move. That's kind of like for my baseball fans out there, and Matt, you remember this, when the A's traded Cespedes for John Lester. Why? It was a move that didn't need to be made. It was a move that didn't need. I'm sorry, Matt.
No, it kind of did though. But yeah, I hate you.
But it backfired, right? It backfired. So that's my fear. That's a fear of mine, though, Brenden. I'm not saying that they're going to make the conference finals. I'm saying if they come out of this next 6-game stretch 4-2, maybe Monty McNair does say, "Hey, we saw the Raptors on the 25th. Raptors are still nosediving. They have a lot of problems going on in their locker room. Maybe it does. Maybe it's going to take Keegan and whatever first they have. Maybe next year's first. I don't know. I mean, that just is kind of a conversation that becomes interesting if they come out of this next stretch and play well. But yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close to the deadline."
Matt, I just want to clarify real quick because you were on with the Raptors insider. He believed that in order for OG Anunoby to be moved, I believe he said it was either going to take multiple, as in 2 to 3 first-round picks, and then I believe when you mentioned the possible addition of Keegan Murray in that package, it only softened it to like 1 first-round pick, and that was might have. Can you remind me on what exactly he felt like OG's value was? Because I think OG is probably like the tip-top player that the Kings could probably acquire at this deadline.
Well, one thing that he made abundantly clear is that Pascal Siakam's not going anywhere. Like, as much as it's a pipe dream, he's not going anywhere. So, and that would take the biggest of the biggest package the Kings could put together, which doesn't exist. OG Anunoby, I agree with you, is at the top. And I think he handled the conversation correctly, even if he was overvaluing OG in some ways. Like, that's the reality is the situation that the Kings are in versus the situation the Raptors are in. The Raptors are underperforming. They're going to fight to be a play-in team. But at the same time, the pressure in that situation is on the Sacramento Kings to acquire the talent to solidify themselves as a playoff team. The pressure's not on Toronto. And OG is very loved and coveted there in Toronto, and he's a player that you probably regret moving on from pretty quickly just because of the type of two-way player that he is. So it will take more than what most Kings fans would be comfortable, probably what Monty McNair would be comfortable giving up. Is OG good enough to turn around the defense and still hit the shots that you need him to hit to be that big of a difference maker? If you believe that, then you, yes, have to include Keegan Murray, a draft pick or two, maybe even like one thing that he said is take the draft picks out of it. Keegan Murray and Davion Mitchell financially straight up for OG works. Do you feel comfortable trading the other two rookies of your draft pick? Like, I know some people say absolutely. Other people are super hesitant.
I'll drive them.
Chris is in.
I'll DJ.
So Chris is done, and Brenden is with him. But I mean,
don't know.
That's the situation. I'm in the same boat. Like, and you know how Team Keegan I am. I think trading Keegan Murray would be a mistake for the Sacramento. I think trading any main part of this roster right now would be a mistake. So, like, that's the situation that Monty McNair is going to find himself in. And the reality is, it's a very painful and tough situation. It's even harder than trading Tyrese Halliburton away because of the expectations that come with that move and the situation that the Kings find themselves. It's fantastic they're in this spot, but if that's the kind of big move you're going to be making, it is going to be dissected and it has to work. There's not okay, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It has to work to pull something off like that, and Monty needs that full confidence.
And here's the thing. I mean, look, and people out there probably thinking their team's playing the best they've played in 17 years. They're talking about blowing it up with the trade. Relax. We're going to move on. But I'm just saying that they traded Tyrese Halliburton, right? Who had 7-8 years of control when the team traded him. If they were to trade for OG, you're basically pushing all of your chips in by trading Davion and Keegan, who both have 7 years of control, roughly. You're trading for Anunoby, who has just next year guaranteed. So you have Sabonis and OG. If the Kings were to, I don't know, bottom out and win 28 games next year, let them both walk. And the Kings are left with, and then because the Kevin Huerter trade too, I think that, it's top 10 protected, I think, in 2025, 24.
Yeah.
Still, I don't know if that's enough to hang your hat on. But yeah, I mean, that's a scary move. Don't love it for that reason. Reason alone, just worst case. But
if I'm Monty, I have no problem trading away future draft picks. I don't give a damn about the future draft. Like, I don't care. This is the Kings window. Like, this is it. You've made it. You've made your bed. You have to ride with this core right now. And if you want to add to it and convince other members of that core, Sabonis, Barnes, to stick around, like, that's your path. Future draft compensation. I know you don't want to handicap your organization for years to come and be in a position where, like the Lakers, you're capped out and you have no assets to free yourself up or get another good player. I understand that. But at this point, I mean, you're the Sacramento Kings. You've made this bed. You got to ride with it. So that's also maybe a reason to argue for pulling off an OG trade and just saying, go for it. So
yeah, the picks don't bother me. I mean, it's the control. Like, if it was control for control, I'd say sure. If OG had 3 years on his deal, I'd say absolutely. That would be a trade. If it was Davion, Keegan, and maybe 2 firsts, that's a lot. But I'd say at least that's a lot. But at least you get 3 years of the guy that you were saying you definitely need, right? It's better than giving away 2 players that are in what I think Davion's 20. Actually, I think Davion's same age as Fox, 25. Then you have Keegan, who's a rookie. I mean, you're trading away almost a decade of these guys for 1 year of one player. So I don't know. That's just the tough part for me. But picks, like we said, we don't know what picks are going to be. We have no idea. It's a crapshoot every year. Right. Anyways, sorry.
No, you're good. We should probably move on to the meat of today's episode, because this next portion is probably going to take a good amount of time. So we should allot that for it. We are just over the official midway point of the Sacramento Kings season. They have played 43 games already this year. This season has both gone incredibly slow and is, I feel like, going to fly by the second half of the year. But it's a perfect time to give our report card, our progress report, if you will, for this Sacramento Kings roster, a roster that has performed better than most, than any Kings roster has in the past 16 years. So we can finally give out some good grades. I would expect a whole lot of A's, whole lot of B's in this one, but we'll see how this goes. We're not going to go through the entire roster because we would probably be here all day. So we're going to go through what Frank called the Elite Eight. I like that a lot. Elite Eight: Fox, Sabonis, Herter, Keegan, Barnes, Davion, Monk, and Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles cracks that Elite
Trey
Eight.
Lyles.
Hell yeah.
Trey Lyles.
Dennis
baby.
Rodman.
Trey Lyles.
You know what? And let's start. I almost said at the bottom, but let's not disrespect.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
No.
Is C as expected? Like average?
So
if they were just a little worse than I expected, and I say like C minus, D plus sounds horrible.
Yes.
But if I'm saying a little worse than expected, like, is that how we do this grading?
Yeah, and you're a jerk, and you should feel bad.
You're a mean teacher. You're one of those mean teachers.
This team is third in the West, you jerk.
Wow, Brenden.
Fair enough.
D plus. They're third in the West. D plus.
I'm not saying this team. I'm just trying to get this right. Yeah, making sure I'm on the same page.
No,
here.
I
Brenden
agree.
voted for Dame.
I just did the same exercise on my Saturday show, and I may or may not have given Davion Mitchell a D. So it was for that similar reason where I was like a little bit less than expectation. That is not how I did this grading system. I did kind of balance it out a little bit more, but you can explain your grade however you want. That's what I have learned from teachers in the past. You can give whatever grade you want, and honestly, you don't have to explain yourself at all. You can just give it and say that's what you got, because that's what I gave you. And that's my rant on teachers for today.
My wife's a teacher. You're 100% right.
Yeah, we're going to start with Trey Lyles. So you can give him whatever the hell you want. I'll start it off. Why not? I have probably been one of the bigger Trey Lyles supporters throughout this season, especially his play as of late. He's been crashing the glass like Dennis Rodman. He is only getting paid, I believe, $2.5 million this year. So to Matt's earlier point, value plays a huge role in my grade, because you're just not going to get this kind of value out of somebody who's only making $2.5 million, somebody who is in the Kings core 8 players that like Trey Lyles at this moment is getting playoff minutes, and he's getting real playoff minutes for the Sacramento Kings. And I don't think I expected that to be such a concrete thing, but with how he's played this year, I've been incredibly impressed. I'm going to give Trey Lyles a B plus. I know it kind of sounded like I was gearing up for an A, but Trey Lyles B plus. Frank, go ahead.
Me? Yeah. I mean, definitely someone who's come on late in the season. I mean, the last 6 games, Trey Lyles, 13.3 points per game, 5 rebounds, 65% shooting, 60% from the 3-point line. He has been someone who's been a huge part of the bench. The bench has definitely needed production with Malik Monk not playing that well over the past couple of weeks. So, all of that kind of tie off what you said too. I expect him to be good coming in the season. I'm going to give him a B+. Yeah, I like the B+ grade.
Brenden.
I will go with a B. I think I just need to see it more often, I guess. Yeah, I'm such a hater for not adding the plus. But it's been like 15 or so games that it's 13 that Trey has been like a consistent part of the rotation and been good. And I think I just need to see more than that. Like, I have faith that will keep going moving forward, especially like the newfound effort he's put into rebounding. I think he's the best example of like Coach Brown's impact, just specifically on players rather than an entire scheme or anything. Like, talked about how he's told Trey, stop pump faking. Everybody in the league knew you were going to pump fake, like, and guarded you accordingly. And then also to put the same effort he puts into offensive rebounding into defensive. And I think we've seen both of those pay dividends for him. So I'll definitely go with B. I'm a little unsure that if the playoffs started today, if Trey would be part of that rotation.
Unbelievable.
He's right on the edge of it. He's right on the edge.
7-man rotation?
I think they could run a 7-man rotation.
With who? With
and you think?
Well, I guess you would need to be 8 because you need that center, that backup center, and maybe Trey gets backup center minutes. Yeah. Maybe it's Mezzi, Richaun, or whatever. But like, I think there's 7 guys that I'm comfortable with in the playoffs right now, and Trey is still just on that fringe. If this keeps up for 15 more, then I'm there. But like, I just need a little bit more. So I'm going B.
Wow, I'm surprised that wow, okay, I'm surprised that Trey's the one on the outside. If you're only counting 7. Matt George.
Well, first off,
local hater.
Brenden would give what? Me? Brenden would give Keon Ellis an A+. So
absolutely, I mean, he deserves it.
Account. Trey Lyles has been excellent. Like, Trey Lyles gets an A- from me easy. Like, it's an excellent role that he's carved out for himself. He showed himself to be coachable and adaptable, just like pretty much everybody on this roster has. Like Chris talked about, he's an incredibly valuable player for the money that he's making, and he's also another feather in the cap of Monte McNair. Somehow Monty turned Marvin Bagley into Trey Lyles and Dante DiVincenzo. I don't know how in the world that he was able to pull that off, but he did. And Trey Lyles is more consistently better than Marvin Bagley ever was. Even if Bagley put up great numbers and had 2 songs written about him by someone. And Dante DiVincenzo, I mean, we saw what happened, but it didn't directly turn into Kevin Huerter, but we know where the Sacramento Kings went. Like, it's a star on the progress report of the report card of Monte McNair. And the fact that Trey has been there and made big plays and stepped up in big moments, even if the stat sheet isn't always glowing every night, he steps up and makes big moments in different ways and is impactful on a nightly basis. And the reality is, when the Sacramento Kings have played their best basketball, i.e. been on these 2 win streaks that they're on, their bench has been significant, and Trey Lyles has been a consistent part of that significance off the bench. So Trey absolutely is getting playoff minutes at this point. I think the Kings highly rely on Trey Lyles as part of that second unit, regardless of how many minutes Domantas Sabonis is playing. And he gets an A- from me big time.
Cool. So just to recap, B+ from me and Frank, a B from Brenden, and an A- from Matt George on Trey Lyles.
And I know we clown Brenden. B's a totally fair grade. It's a totally fair grade, but you're still wrong.
Probably the lowest grade that he deserds, but totally fine.
B for Brenden.
Tough teacher, man.
Keep it up and we'll be there.
Tough teacher.
Right. I am not taking Brendan's class. We are going to move on next to Malik Monk. Malik is at 13.5 points per game this season, 3.8 assists, coming off the Kings bench, 42 games, 0 starts so far for Malik this year. So a true 6-man, 22 minutes a game, 43% from the field, 32% from 3-point. That is a career low. And that's kind of where my criticism on Malik Monk kind of begins, is just, last season in Los Angeles, we saw him shoot just under 40%, 39.1% from three, 40% from three on 5 attempts the season before that in Charlotte. This season, for him to be taking just about the same amount of threes, 5.4 threes per game, shooting that 32% clip. I'm actually kind of surprised that it's been that low. I feel like watching recently it has, you definitely have felt Malik struggle. Last night against the Lakers, I think he finished 1 of 9 from the field. So his struggles are really starting to become apparent. But to start off the year, he was incredible, was definitely leading the conversation with Benedict Mathurin for 6th man of the year. I think that talk has maybe cooled down a little bit, but Malik is still in a firm standing for that award if he can turn things around, and I'm pretty confident that he will. Just because of his recent struggles, I think I'm going to give him a B-. I think if the 3-point numbers looked better, I could probably give him a B or a B+. But I think it shouldn't be understated how good Malik was when he was good for this team. His finishing has been incredible. We've seen his ability to be a spark plug off the bench, which is something that the Kings haven't really had. And I think Malik has fit that role perfectly, and to everyone's surprise has really been that secondary playmaker that we were hoping Davion Mitchell would be, but Malik Monk really just kind of, or I guess it would be third playmaker behind De'Aaron Fox, but has really stepped into that playmaker role. He's been a welcome surprise, a great addition. And if this is Malik playing poorly, I can't wait to see how well he's going to be and how good it's going to be for the team when he starts playing well. So I'm going to give Malik a B- at the moment, but with some flexibility. Frank?
Yeah, I'm kind of close. I'm going to give him a B. And I think his scoring hasn't been as consistent as we would have liked it to be off the bench. And the shooting has been very spotty. I mean, he had a really good run. I think he was averaging over 20 points per game for, I think, the month of December, early in the month of December. He's really kind of fallen off in January. But the fact that he can move the ball around is like a big aspect of his game. How he's not one-dimensional. He can be a distributor. If De'Aaron Fox were to miss time or Davion Mitchell were to miss time, he can slide into that backup point guard role if the Kings were not wanting to use Delly that much. Can't imagine why they wouldn't, though. Delly's been hitting 3-pointers like crazy when he comes into games lately. So, but that the fact that he can move the ball around and he's not one-dimensional, like you said, Chris, gets in the paint, can score on the rim. I think we made jokes. He's like the next layup king of this team since like Tyreek Evans. So, little more than I expected, because I think we're doing C as middle ground, right? I think he's been better than I expected a little bit, but the inconsistent part of his game has been kind of a bummer. So I'm going to go with B.
Brenden?
Yeah, a little bit. Apparently, I'm the a-hole teacher here, but
there we go.
A little bit better than I expected. He's just been very inconsistent. Like if you look at the month of January, Malik is putting up 9 points, 3.5 assists with 1.5 turnovers on 33% from the field, 28% from three. Like he did have a phenomenal stretch where I was like, oh my God, is this guy way better than everybody thought he was? And he just needed to get more opportunity. I think he's just a little bit of an up and down player, and the 3-point percentage on the season doesn't look great, but he has 35% on catch and shoot. It's that like just under 28% on pull-ups or off the dribble that makes that percentage look a little bit more tough. But I think as a player, I was expecting this a little bit more streaky, but every once in a while, he's straight up winning you games. And I don't feel like he's ever losing you games, which is a big plus. But I added the plus just genuinely because of his personality. I think that him as a person is so big for just the team environment. Like I think that he's a very vocal person, a fun personality to bring around that kind of helps bring everybody together. So I think as a player, he's been kind of as expected, maybe higher highs and lower lows than I expected, but evens out to about the same. But I think his personality genuinely is a pretty big plus to this team. So I went C+.
Completely agree. Mateo?
Yeah, I'm going to go with B+. And specifically, like, I understand the shooting and the concerns of the shooting. It's a very, very valid thing. I expected him to be better than 32%. However, the Sacramento Kings are still scoring at an elite rate, even with his struggles offensively. Right. So the team is able to make up for that. Where they haven't been able to make up at times when Malik is struggling the most is the facilitating that he provides. And the reality is, like, Malik Monk is the heart and soul of that second unit. When Malik Monk comes into games, especially if he's playing well, but even in games that he's struggling, he brings an energy that at home you see the fans buy into. There's a reason why the Sacramento Kings have put together some of their best runs of the season with Malik Monk on the floor. For some reason, Malik Monk and Chimezie Metu have turned into one of the most fun combos in the league. And here's what excites me the most about Malik. He has a clear identified role. I also give Mike Brown and his coaching staff credit for this, but Malik has a clear identified role that he knows and he can excel at. The big issue is the thing holding him back from being an A is that sometimes he doesn't. Like, there are just nights where he doesn't. We know Malik can be a microwave scorer. We love that from Malik, and the Kings will definitely lean on that from time to time over the course of the season. But Malik is at his best when he is distributing. Malik is at his best when he is that secondary playmaker. And sometimes he even becomes that primary playmaker when he and Fox are sharing the floor and Domantas Sabonis is out. Like, he's stepped up in that role as well. So when Malik is attacking and finding open teammates, plus the energy and hustle that he brings, the Kings feed off of that. That second unit energy almost revitalizes this team in a lot of ways. So I think Malik is essential to the success of the Sacramento Kings. His personality is essential in that locker room as well over the course of an 82-game season. I think we've significantly cooled down on Malik being a 6th man of the year candidate, unfortunately, because of how his offense has dropped off a little bit. But in terms of importance for the Sacramento Kings, he's a B+.
Completely agree. Yeah, don't really have much to add. I think you guys nailed it, and I think you're completely right on Malik's personality. Like, it definitely has been a really big plus, and probably I'm trying to think of, like, he's like overtly funny. I'm trying to think of like the last King that was really like as outgoing and hilarious as Malik. So he's been a nice addition in that sense.
I will say DeMarcus Cousins was really funny. DeMarcus Cousins was a really funny player. I don't know if he has the Malik charm, but DeMarcus
kind of humor, right?
Really
Whiteside was pretty funny a couple of years ago.
Again, different kind of funny.
Buddy Hield was pretty funny. Buddy Hield knew how to get the team laughing and pissed off.
Similar kind of funny as Whiteside.
Yeah.
Real quick, should we sprinkle in? I mean, we're all for Fox and Sabonis. We already talked. Are we going to give them both A pluses? Like, I don't think.
Yeah, we can just skip past that one. No,
like is that worth the conversation?
Brenden, I don't know. Hold on, wait.
Yeah,
whoa.
B-.
No, A+ for Domas. And yeah, A.
Hold on.
I just hesitate on the plus, I guess.
I do agree.
Tweet his ass, De'Aaron. Tweet his ass.
A+ is like, this is the best season you ever possibly could have put together.
So an A for
I do.
De'Aaron.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, Domas is all NBA. I think the best De'Aaron season, he's in all NBA conversations.
But 24 career high in rebounds, 4.3, 6 assists, 50% from the field, and 33 from the three. I mean, that's, I don't know what more we can realistically ask for.
Third seed in the Western Conference.
But you're right. I mean, he has had better seasons before. I think Fox had a better season 2 years ago, but I still think, all things considered, just because I thought we'd make it quick because we do have practice at 1 o'clock. I thought we'd just give Fox and Sabonis all A pluses, but now we have a discussion.
No, that's fine. Like, I don't mind that at all. I'm definitely just being more like critical or picky with this, I guess. Like, I just think that this isn't the best possible De'Aaron Fox that we could have seen this season. I think this is the best Domas that we could have seen, no question. But I think that there is still like another level to De'Aaron. If that 3-point shot is falling more consistently, if he's getting to the line more often, if he's maybe more consistent on the defensive end, like, I think there's still nights where he has a lot of turnovers. He's been phenomenal. He's deserving of that all-star conversation. I think the whole him and Dame or him and whoever it comes down to is a close race, and that's a testament to how freaking good he's been. He's one of the best clutch players in the league. I have so much faith in every shot he puts up in the clutch, actually. So he's phenomenal. I don't want it to come across as like I'm downplaying De'Aaron's season. I just think that like A+ for me means that this is the best you possibly could have played. And I just think there's a little bit more that I could have seen from De'Aaron.
I think really quick, I think Brenden makes an excellent point. I will say my one counter to that is that the Sacramento Kings don't need that A+ as much as they've relied on it in the past. And I'd argue that De'Aaron is more valuable as an A for this team than he would be trying to be an A+ every night. And last night, when he had to be an A+, when the Kings were missing their other star, he stepped up in that role. So, I mean, I think the fact that he is an A on this team gives him an A+ for me, because De'Aaron doesn't have to be the 30+ points a night player for the Kings to have a chance. It would be nice, but again, this team is already scoring, so the scoring numbers don't bother me. And De'Aaron has made strides defensively that suggests to me that he is coachable and he is making the adjustments to his game and sometimes taking a back seat on the star numbers in order for the Kings to win. That deserves an A+.
100%.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with what Brendan's saying, but I feel like I wrote down A+. So,
is Coach part of this?
Yeah.
Yes, he will be. He will be.
Can we group him in this? Because like that's the easiest A+ out of all of them, right?
We get the easy ones out of the way because the discussion ones are fun.
Right.
Like, I think Mike and Monty should just be Mike, Monty, and Sabonis for sure are A+, right? I mean, there's nothing better. Any of them, like, expectations cannot be exceeded further than Monty putting this team in third spot. Okay.
Well, I'll actually, if Brendan, if I give
De'Aaron an A, I'm giving Monty an A. Just no plus. That's all it is.
I'm going to be nitpicky. The only thing I'll be nitpicky about with Mike Brown is the fact that sometimes his rotations have been throwing something against the wall to steal with sticks. And it took him, like, the Kings went 0-4 at the beginning of the season because Mike Brown didn't know his rotations. That's fine. Like, he took the time to figure it out. He has clear identified roles and the Kings are working now. Mike Brown absolutely deserves an A+ from me, but if someone wanted to give him an A because of his inconsistent rotations at times and questions about that second unit, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll just talk about the coaching staff at the moment. Like, Mike Brown and the coaching staff specifically gets A++ for me. Like, this is a perfect coaching staff for this team. The amount of, like, we talk about the roster depth, the coaching depth on this team is absolutely crazy. We've seen Jordy step up when Mike wasn't playing, and in Summer League was incredibly impressive. Jay Triano is a guy who's been a head coach in the NBA. He's just been around the NBA for years as well. We know what Doug brings to the table. Lindsey Harding, somebody who's a great basketball mind. Luke Laux has been a personal developer of De'Aaron Fox in his game this year.
Barbosa.
The entire, what's that?
Barbosa too.
Barbosa as well. Yeah, I completely forget about Barbosa, who's also hilarious. The entire coaching staff is just absolutely incredible, and like it's just, they get all the awards for them. Like they are a perfect staff for this team. So
also Leandro Barbosa looks like he could suit up and play tomorrow.
Oh,
like,
absolutely,
the exact same, and my favorite thing that Barbosa does as a coach, and I know you guys have noticed this sitting courtside watching warmups, his job is to contest shots as much as possible and make warmups as difficult as possible for people, and he owns that job. I love Leandro Barbosa. Great on 2K too.
I'm convinced the coaching staff could play 5-on-5 with like the bench and beat them. Bro. Like,
that would be a phenomenal.
I swear there's at least 5 guys on this staff that can totally ball out.
I think we have like the best coaching staff, like basketball coaching staff. Like, if we were to do like a new league of just coaching staffs playing, Kings have to have the best one.
Assuming
like, we have Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, assuming the staff is still together, that needs to be what FanFest is next year. Coaches versus players. That's what it needs to be.
Coaches versus media.
That's a great idea.
I tried asking about a media game. I tried to ask him about the media versus media game, like a media game, and our friends at the Kings are like, nope.
Yeah,
they're like, go find a pickup court like somewhere else. I'm like, come on, man, that'd be fun.
No, Leo on my team.
We could sign waivers.
I'll get the water.
Right.
I want to guard De'Aaron. For one opportunity, I want to guard.
I want you to guard De'Aaron too.
See what he does to my ankles. I would pay money for someone to record that. I don't mind taking that L. That would be phenomenal content.
Unreal. I don't even know where we're at right now.
I think we have how long? We have what? 15 minutes.
We have 15 or so minutes until we got to go for practice. We have 4 more players, and we'll just pass on the Monty McNair conversation. He's an A.
That could be.
He's in the A grouping. Can we all agree on that? Whether it's A-, A, or A+, Monty McNair gets a spiritual A. How about that?
What more do you want to see from him, though, Brenden? I'm just curious. What more do you
Another
want?
move?
What more do you want?
TBD. Like, I have to see how this season ends.
Well, this is a progress report. So if you had to give just for the moves that have been made and how those moves have affected what we have seen to this point.
Matt's very upset.
Matt is so mad.
If it's audio only, Matt's head is in his microphone.
Brenden,
going
please.
A+ is perfect in my mind, y'all. Like, and it's not.
Matt
I don't know. I guess this team performance is the best possible outcome that you could have expected. But
100%.
maybe I'm nitpicky. Like, is there not like 3 guys in the draft right now that you would have rather had over?
Brenden, let's not have this conversation.
Would Dante DiVincenzo not still be a rotational player on this team? Like, I'm just saying, like, there's little. If I want to nitpick, I feel I could take away the plus.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. The Dante, that's definitely a head scratcher. You're not wrong there. Not wrong.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. But
third seed in the Western Conference. The third seed in the Western Conference thing, that is amazing to me. I'm not like, I guess I'm just still skeptical.
You're trying to not be prisoner of the moment.
They're 4 games out of being 9th, 4.5 out of being 11th. Like, but I know 4.5's not nothing, but like, it doesn't take much to fall back down. So I'm just still skeptical.
You don't believe yet.
I believe they're good. I don't know that I believe their home court advantage.
We should not extend Monty.
Whoa. Extend Monty? Is that what you're saying?
Calm down there.
That's what Brenden said.
You want to hear my Vlade Divac grade? It was not an A.
Matt has quiet quit this podcast.
He's protesting quietly.
I appreciate Brendan's opinion. That's all I have to say.
I love and respect all opinions, and that is it. Let's move on. Let's try and move on.
We'll pod next week.
How is it not an A+, Brenden? They're third in the Western Conference. The man has completely turned the team around. I don't understand. That doesn't make sense. Kevin Herter, Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis.
It's a very fair point.
Buddy Hield's gone.
Marvin Bagley's also gone.
Trey Lyles.
He didn't bring back Jamie and Jones, though.
You know, Davion Mitchell.
You're telling me we couldn't use
Murray.
Jamie and Jones right now?
Oh, don't you? Oh.
If we had Benedict Mathurin,
oh
my goodness.
So
Davion Mitchell, Davion Mitchell. Let's talk a little bit about Davion. I think this is probably where we'll have the most variance in our grades. I can't wait to hear what Brenden gives Davion. Davion is averaging 6 points a game, 2.2 rebounds, 34% from 3, which has risen since the last time I looked at it. He is shooting 46% from the field, 3 starts this season from Davion, which this sounds like a lot. I don't remember those, but 3 starts for Davion Mitchell this year. Yeah, this one's tough for me. This is where Brendan's precedent question at the beginning of this was very important for me for this specific grade. I mentioned I gave Davion a D on my show over the weekend. After further review, I think I'm going to give him a C+, but I would like to break that down into 2 different grades. I'll give him an A- for defense. And I'm going to
no. That is the most
average those 2 out. That equals a C+.
You know,
I
think the offense has not been bad this year, though. I mean, 46 from the field, 34 from 3. But that's
hasn't been bad, Frank.
But has
it been horrible? Is that what we're getting at here? Or?
He's up from 41 and 31 to 46 and 34. I mean, and he's been playing a lot less minutes. He's playing 10 less minutes per game. So, like, the defense is the defense. We know what he brings. The offense has taken technically a step forward, in my opinion, but I do want to see more from him. I don't know how big of a piece he is for this rotation long term. I don't know if he's someone that needs to be a starting guard. I think he plays the best when he is a starter. I'm going to give him just a B-. I'm going to give him a B-.
I would like to lower my grade.
First of all, Chris hinted at earlier that playoff rotations that Trey Lyles is really the one you're going to leave out, acting like he wasn't talking about Davion. We all know you were talking about Davion.
Damn.
And then you set up your game about, what'd you say, C+ or something?
I gave him a C+, but after hearing a B- with Frank's positive review, I feel like I should give him a C- just to emphasize that I am not on the positive side of Davion Mitchell. Like I said, though, I am surprised to see his catch and shoot numbers as well have came up to 37% on three, and his 3-point numbers are now at 34%. They were hovering near under 30% for a large portion of this season.
I am going with C, and it just has to do with like what the expectations were coming into the year.
Right.
I already was very skeptical about his offensive game, but knew what he could do on defense, and thought that like Malik and Herter coming in meant that he was probably going to be the one that sacrificed minutes. And I feel like that's kind of what we've seen, and it's just kind of been as expected. I think there's moments where he changes the game on defensively, and then there's moments where he is just killing all offensive flow, like almost Buddy Hield-esque on offense, to be honest, like just kind of trying to take matters into his own hands and is just dribbling the air out of the ball.
A lot of dribbling.
So I think that's kind of been as expected, though. And I think that if that 3-point shot can continue to fall at a better rate and he can get more comfortable playing off of Domas, even though I know a lot of his minutes, actually a decent amount of his minutes do come with Domas, but there's a handful without as well. But I think just if he can get more comfortable on the offensive end, that would be a lot of progress, because his defensive impact is unquestionable. If this guy was actually 6'2", like he's listed here, or like 6'4", like we're actually talking about Marcus Smart, who's like defensive player of the year last year. You know, like I think that Davion is crazy on defense. He's just limited by his size, and offensively, he just I think kills the flow too often for me. I think that their offense looks different with him out there. I think there's been games throughout the course of this year where you probably would have wanted to see him in the closing lineup, but it seemingly Mike Brown went away from that because his offensive production is a question mark. So I went with C just because I think this is kind of about what I expected for Davion.
I too am going with C. His defense is too good to drop him into any kind of below average category for me. However, he's been disappointing offensively compared to what he showed at the end of last season, which I think was kind of expected because he was putting up the numbers he was putting up in garbage time on a bad team, playing 40 minutes a night. So like those expectations were always a little bit skewed. At the same time, I don't know how much I blame Davion and how much I blame the system, because there have been times where I'm completely confused why Davion is doing the things he's doing. He's turned into essentially a catch and shoot merchant. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he shares a lot of time with either Malik Monk or De'Aaron Fox, who get to the rim and who put the ball on the floor. I agree that Davion has not mastered the art of half a second decision making, which is one of the pillars of Mike Brown's system. So that needs to improve, and maybe the adjustments that the Kings have made to Davion Mitchell on offense are because he hasn't achieved those pillars. But at the same time, too, I think if you're just expecting Davion to be a catch and shoot 3-point offensive asset, you're setting yourself up to at best have neutral value from him. His defense is so good that he has to be on the floor, but offensively, unless he can get his shooting percentage up to 37%, like teams aren't going to respect him enough for that to be valuable. Like that, if there's a double team coming, it's going to come from whichever guard is on Davion. I would love to see Davion get a little more aggressive. I would love for the Sacramento Kings to not run sets for him necessarily, but give him opportunity in the pick and roll as well, because he's a smart and crafty basketball player. So I think the system is partially to blame for that too, but also the system is working. And if you can't keep up with the system, that's on you. So he's a solid C for me.
Since December 19th, 15 games, Davion Mitchell, 53% from the field, 44% from three. I mean, it's trending upwards, but yeah, like you guys said,
what are the attempts? What are the attempts?
It's just under 5. So yeah, the assists also are way down. I mean, I think last year, again, like you said, it was kind of very Ray McCallum-esque when he was playing like 40 minutes, getting big numbers. We're like, whoa, is he on something? He was kind of stat padding last year. And yeah, the assist numbers are down this year. He's playing alongside guys that like to move the basketball around. So yeah, I would like to see more in that regard too. But the shooting is coming along, even though it's not high volume. It's coming along. He's making the shots he's taking. But yeah, I mean, second half, we need to see a lot more from him as far as just the fluidity of the offense. And when he's on the floor, it needs to look better.
We're going to get to practice, and Frank's going to be like, yeah, I think we should talk to Davion and Trey Lyles.
Yeah, it's like those guys.
Hey, that would be nice.
Speaking of practice, what do we have left?
Let's zoom through. Zoom through these. We have 3 more. We have Carter, Keegan, and Barnes.
Those are ones we could probably talk about a lot, but I mean, let's try to compile it into 10 or 7 minutes. Chris, you start. You're the
okay. Let's start off with HB, one of my favorite players on the Kings. Everyone knows that I have a Harrison Barnes jersey. I have multiple, and I'm a big supporter of Harrison.
Yes.
Harrison started off the season incredibly rough, so rough to the point where people were wondering: has Harrison Barnes just forgot how to play basketball? Is he
what, Brenden? Is he
was the question that was asked? Some people wondered if Harrison Barnes forgot how to play basketball, and rightfully so.
That kid on the Kings Beat podcast.
Yes. Yes. That not local guy. He was really bad. He was shooting like 30% from 3 for a large majority of this season. We've seen, I don't know, the past month. I mean, definitely since the turn of the new year, Harrison has been a different guy, but it was a couple weeks before that as well, where Harrison has really been consistent, which is not a word that has been uttered after Harrison Barnes' name quite too often. And I don't really he hasn't left me much to complain about, honestly. He has been incredibly solid. He's been getting to the free throw line a lot recently, and that's been a welcome addition to his game. He's just been really solid. I'm going to give him a B+. Let's go Matt next. Yeah. Sorry, Frank. I'm skipping you. Yeah, shaking it up.
Sit down, Frank. Harrison has had, I think, one double or single digit game in the last 2 months. Like, if you are getting double digits every night from Harrison Barnes, who is your 4th option at best offensively in that starting lineup, you are getting positive value. And Harrison is consistently providing that. And as of right now, I mean, his shooting was so bad to start the season that he's been shooting lights out, and he's still in the mid 30s from 3-point range. So he's trying to pull himself out of that hole statistically, but the numbers do not suggest how important he has been for the Kings. And he had one of the biggest plays of the night, answering LeBron's game-tying and one last night with an and one of his own. Like, that completely halted the Lakers' momentum. So Harrison is all reliable. I'll stand and continue to die on my hill that you take the risk of not trading Harrison and potentially losing him this offseason. So, I mean, he's not an A grade for me, but he's a very solid B+. If he had a better start of the season, he would be in the A category for me, but I'm really pleased with Harrison.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here anymore.
we have 4 minutes, Brenden.
Okay, so he's had one single digit game in the last 2 months, I think was Matt's stat. He's had 8 prior to that, just for what it's worth. The Kings are 10-3 in games where he scores 20+. He feels like the kind of like X factor to me. If you have a good HB game, you are going to have a pretty good night from Sacramento. I just don't know that I can count on him having a good game. I love this stretch that he's on. He's been phenomenal in the month of January. I have no confidence that this will keep up. I think to an extent, I think that he is a 40% 3-point shooter. He's a better 3-point shooter than what we've seen throughout the course of this year when the averages come through. I think that he has still been a really better than I expected this year, obviously. Yeah. I'm still going B-. It's not like I'm super down on HB. I just think it's worth noting he's in a phenomenal stretch right now. Do you remember the beginning of last year when he was we were 15 games in? And it was
on the team.
Is this guy going to be an all-star this year?
It's kind of like the one he's on now.
He has these stretches. This is kind of typical HB. No,
wow, you sound like me.
I'm happy that he hasn't seemingly regressed.
It is kind of similar to last year's opening stretch. This stretch he's on right now, the past, he scored 20, 29, 27, 30 over the 4 of the past 5 games. Yeah. I'm going to give him a B. I'm going solid B. I mean, he's been playing, like you said, that all-star HB. The last 20 games, 17 points per game, 47 from the field, 41 from 3, 4.7 rebounds. He's doing it for a while now, since before Christmas, 20 games. Can he keep doing this? I don't really feel Christian Wood just fractured his left thumb. I don't really feel confident either, but
does anyone think he can keep doing this? No, right?
No.
But also the Kings don't need him to. He's in a hot stretch right now where others are struggling, just like Kevin Huerter started the season shooting over 50% from three-point range. De'Aaron Fox had a dip, is playing out of his mind. Domantas Sabonis is just now averaging a triple-double or just over the last week. So good stretches happen, and the Kings are heavily relying on this from HB. He doesn't have to do this for the Kings to be successful, but they need him to do it right now, and they're winning games significantly because of him. So, I mean, I don't need this trend to continue for Harrison. He's been consistent, and that's all I can ask for out of my fourth spot starting wing.
I think I have a new bit that I'm going to start where I just ask you guys if he was HB plus, HB, or HB minus. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. Thank you. That entire time you guys were talking, I was thinking about that. So yeah, we have to wrap this up. Keegan Murray, real quick.
A+.
Okay.
No, not really.
Okay, let's get.
You know what? Let's do Kevin Huerter first because Huerter will be faster. Let's do Huerter. Let's do Huerter first.
Okay.
Kevin Huerter has been a welcome addition to the team. Let me pull up his numbers right now as I filibuster. This is great.
15.7 points.
15.7 points. 41% from the field. That was down from like 50% the first month of the season. That was not going to last, but 41% from three, 48% from the field. Had 8 assists last night, averaging 3 assists per game. Kevin Huerter has provided much needed spacing for this team. After the team lost Buddy Hield last year, there was really no true knockdown 3-point shooter. What we've seen from Huerter in his 2-man game with Domas has been incredible. It's a real legitimate weapon that they're going to ride until they can't anymore. I can't imagine anyone coming in as hot as Kevin Huerter did this season. Obviously has cooled down, but still shooting well above 40% from three. I'm going to give Kevin Huerter an A. How about that? Defensively, not so much, but overall, I'm going to give him.
I'm going A. Like you said, the floor spacing's been needed. He's shooting. I mean, he's having a career year, 15.7 points. I don't know what more you want from on the offensive end. Defense needs to be better, not for just Huerter, but the whole team. Like the whole team has been poor defensively, except for maybe 1 or 2 guys. But I'm going to focus on what he's been bringing to the table offensively. He should be in the 3-point shootout like we talked about. He should be in Salt Lake City. I'm going with an A. Brenden. God.
No, let's go Matt first because Brenden does
so
not.
Afraid.
Brendan's going to have something to say, so we'll go Matt first. Matt, go ahead.
And I think I understand Brendan's dilemma. I think he's putting A+ on the same level for every player. Like if you're A+, this is what you are. And I think the grade and an A is specific to what each player brings to the table for the Sacramento Kings and what expectations were. Kevin Huerter has come from Atlanta into a spot where he has to be a better scorer, and he's embraced that role. He's the best 3-point shooter on the Sacramento Kings. His spacing, you have to respect. He's hit big shots in big moments like that 1-point win at home over the Utah Jazz. Defensively, at times he's been bad. Other times he's been better than expected. He's also stepped up as a facilitator a lot of times, taking some of that off of his backcourt partner in De'Aaron Fox. Kevin Huerter is an A. Kevin Huerter came to Sacramento. The fact that a shooter came to Sacramento and got better. When's the last time that's happened? Like we've had so many shooters get traded to Sacramento and forget how to play. Like Kevin Huerter came to Sacramento and got better, embraced his role. He's been fantastic for the Kings. The Kings offense, as great as and important as Sabonis and Fox are, Kings offense does not work without the spacing that Kevin Huerter provides alone. He's hit big shot after big shot for this team. Kevin Huerter's an absolute A. Brenden, break my heart.
Give him a C.
I'm not going C. I had high expectations for Huerter coming over. And again, my grades are relative to what my expectations were. If they met my expectations and just at that, that's a C, which I could have high expectations and like whatever. I had high expectations for Huerter. I'm going with a B. I think that his 3-point shooting has shocked me. I mean, like his 3-point shooting is really good. I've been surprised at the extent of how often he kind of disappears, to be honest. But I think he's been really solid. 41% on the year, 38 on catch and shoots, 46% on pull-ups is pretty crazy. But I think defensively, he's disappointed me a little bit. I think that there's times that he's the guy that the opposing team is targeting out there. And I think that like last night, you saw the defensive adjustment. It's not Davion, go get Fox. It's Davion, go get Kevin Huerter. So I think just I had high expectations, but Huerter's been about what you expected. I just don't know that like my idea of who Kevin Huerter is has changed drastically. And I think that's like, I guess, what takes an A for me. So I'm going with B.
That's that is very interesting. I feel like I should mention Kevin Huerter does have career highs almost across the board, averaging 3 more points per game than his previous career high of 12. He's now at 15.7. Career high shooting from 3. He's never shot above 39%. He's now at 41. Just from the field in general, never shot over 45%. He's at 48%. Brenden had sky high expectations.
Is it that surprising? Like he was going to get a way bigger role in Sacramento.
I mean, he was going to get a bigger role, but for him to be, 14 points per game would have been a big improvement from what he had been doing in Atlanta. That's a 2-point per game difference. He is almost at 4 points per game higher than his previous career high. And you're taking him away from Trae Young, who does shoot the crap out of the ball. But, for him to have such a massive boost, like if Lauri Markkanen isn't in, doing what he's doing right now, you could argue Kevin Huerter is top 2, top 3 for most improved player of the year, which is where you and I both expect. We talked preseason. We had that level of expectation for him, and I don't know if he's at least been to that level. Whether or not he's reached and exceeded, I would be willing to have the conversation, but he has at least reached the level of, okay, we're expecting you to have a better role, be better. He has without a doubt been better. Let's move on now. Last player. We are finally here. We have arrived at the Kings' newest player, Keegan Murray. Keegan, Frank, do you have his stats? I just closed out.
I just closed my iPad in anticipation.
I honestly thought we were done. It's okay. I just pulled it up. Keegan Murray is averaging 11.7 points per game. He is shooting 40.6% from 3, 43% from the field, under 1 assist, 4 rebounds per game. Keegan has been a dynamite shooter. I think that's been a majority of his impact on this team. We've started to see him kind of be better off ball defensively. He leads the team in blocks still, if I'm not mistaken. So that's an interesting note. But even then, he's at 0.6 blocks per game. So it's not like he's Dikembe Mutombo down there or anything. I'm going to give Keegan. I'm going to give him a B- only because I know Brenden is going to give him.
You're leaving me on an island here. You want to say lower.
You're such my God. All right.
If we had more time, maybe I would give Keegan a worse grade. But for the sake of keeping this short, just know B- is not a glowing review. But I'm going to give him a B-.
And we're gonna have to come back next week and do more in depth on this. Yeah, sorry, everybody, that we have to go to King's practice, but
I don't even know if we're gonna make practice at this point.
Oh, I don't think we are. Michael is calling me. I'm gonna mute real quick. 1 second. Someone else take over.
All right, Matt, go ahead. Matt looks real sad, boy. Matt, go ahead. Keegan Murray. It should also be established Matt was the leading voice of the Keegan Murray hype train before the draft. So Matt can take victory laps if he wants, if he feels necessary. I would.
Keegan is the light of my world. And then there's my son. No, I'm kidding. Keegan and your wife. And then my wife. Yeah. No, Keegan is, I'm going back and forth here between B+ and A-, which sounds absurd, but for me, the significance of Keegan stepping into a starting role right away and showing that he belongs. He's up there in NBA history with some of the most threes amongst rookies.
Right.
And so you guys got to wrap up. So I'll just say this really quick. Keegan Murray to me is fulfilling his role. He's also showing he's coachable. He stepped up in a major way last night with 10 rebounds. He needs to do that more, by the way. Defense, of course, he could get better, but for what I would expect out of a rookie on a team that is as good as the Sacramento Kings are, he's fulfilling that.
I'm giving him B-. Gotta see more. Brendan's going C. We'll be back. We have to go. They're closing practice early, and they said we have 10 minutes. So we will.
Oh,
see you guys. Yeah, we gotta Fast and Furious it.
All right.
Love you guys.
For Brenden Nunes, for Matt George, for Frankie Cartoscelli. These topics at some point soon. I thought Frank already left. He was paused. Thank you all so much for listening. I think that's it. Bye-bye.